So it's almost impossible, at least long term, to be able to get in good shape without doing any cooking or any meal prepping. I'm going to give you a couple of specific scenarios where, let's say you're traveling, you're staying at a hotel, you're somewhere else, you're visiting family, or you're basically in a place for a limited amount of time where you just have no option to cook or to do even like basic meal prep, in which case, sure, there are some options that you can go for. There may not be the most sustainable ones, they may not be the most healthy ones, and they may not necessarily align that well with your current goal, whether this is bulking, cutting, recom, whatever you're doing at the time. So just want to make sure that we're clear on this. There will be some cooking, even though the topic is how to minimize cooking in order to get in good shape. And then the next thing to talk about is some major consideration there. So you want to first figure out what, how do I put this? I guess realize that there's going to be some trade-offs between what you're trying to achieve, the quality of those results, and of course the time investment as well. So speaking of time investment, there will be some initial investment in learning. So if you are new to training, to eating healthy, to tracking calories, macros, it will take some time. If you have never dealt with meal prepping, if you've never cooked for yourself, or if you've never had to manage your own food, or at least you were not as diligent, there will be some initial investment in learning. Even the stuff that I'm going to give you now as a sort of a structure to your day and different strategies. This is just the very, very basics there, and there's still going to be some learning process. So also, you may need to do some research, which I guess is going to fall under the same umbrella of learning. And you may need to make some financial investments, not so much in terms of eating different foods or buying different foods, but maybe some specific cooking appliances that are going to make your life much easier when it comes to meal prep or just organizing your meals. Then there's going to be some trade-offs in terms of taste. The stuff that's easy to prepare may not be the tastiest one, the tastiest option there. So it is also another consideration there. I'm not going to say that some of the options I'm going to give you in terms of foods that don't require cooking or are just minimal prep options are going to taste the best. Probably not. There are ways you can improve the taste for sure, but it will take some experimentation there. It may not be as good as just regular cooked meals. Also, there's going to be some trade-offs, or there could be some trade-offs in terms of health. There are really convenient options when it comes to eating maybe like nice food, healthy, not healthy food, but food that aligns with your, let's say, fat loss goal at the time. But there may be some minor or maybe some major impacts on your health. That's why I said that it's not going to be perfect, and you need to find the right balance for you. I'm not going to say what's wrong, what's right. Obviously, everybody is going to have a different goal, and they're going to have to make different trade-offs. So, a couple of other initial considerations. There is going to be a difference between what you should eat that's going to align with your goal. So obviously, if you're trying to lose weight, you should be going for lower calorie foods, maybe low fat, maybe foods that are a little bit more bland, that don't taste that good. Maybe you're trying to up your protein intake. Maybe you're trying to up your carb intake, or you're trying to lower your carbs. So there is or a general strategy in terms of how you should eat. But we also need to compare this to, or at least find a balance between what you should eat versus what you actually like. Again, coming down to the taste thing, it may not necessarily have to do much with taste. For example, if you're trying to up your protein, maybe it's not that you don't like protein, but eating so much protein becomes a problem. So this is another thing that we need to consider there, where you may not be going swinging all the way in one direction. Maybe you're like, okay, I know how I should eat. I know I should eat a little protein, or I should limit my carbs, but this is not how I want to eat. And this is not what I like. And this is probably not going to work for me in the long term. So we need to find some balance there. So with this already once since we've already covered these points, let's talk about some specific options there and some specific products that you guys can use. And I'm going to be starting with protein, then moving into carbs. Carbs, I'm going to divide them into two separate options, if you will, not options, but you're going to segment carbs into your side carbs, for the most part, starchy carbs. And then there's going to be plants, which are technically carbs as well. And then we're going to talk about fats as well. So with protein, what are easy sources where you can get your protein from that don't require much cooking and don't require much prepping? The problem with protein is probably one of those options where if you want to opt for quality protein sources, you'd have to cook that, because that's going to be mostly meat, maybe fish as well. This is the not necessarily the highest quality, but for the most part, if I have to generalize, I would start with getting most of my protein from meats. Because with meat, you also are getting a lot of vitamins and nutrients, different nutrients such as vitamins and minerals that are essential for good health, good performance as well. So the biggest problem with protein is that if you want to eat more meat, it's just not going to be an option there. Or at least it's going to be harder to get meat that you don't need to cook. So one option would be just get meats that are already pre-cooked. If you go to most grocery stores, they usually have some options there. Obviously, you can order in takeaway and so on. So I know it's not like something new, but you can definitely make some good choices. And a good rule of thumb is that if you're going to be eating out, or if you're going to be buying something that is already cooked, if you're going to be ordering food from a restaurant or from a fast food joint, whatever the case is, go for 2-to-1 ratio between protein and fats. So most meats or fish, they come packaged with, they're very fatty, either because they're being fried or because it's more of a fatty cut, fatty steak, which makes it taste better. But if you're trying to lean down, obviously you're going to have to manage calories as well. And a good rule of thumb is, again, just try to minimize fats, because a lot of the excess calories are going to come from there. And also try to avoid breading or added carbs. So a lot of the meats, for example, if you're going for, let's say, buffalo wings or breaded wings, they're going to have a lot of carbs. So try to go for leaner meats. So this is usually going to be turkey, chicken, sometimes pork and beef as well. And if you're not sure, you can always go on MyFitnessPal. Even if you go to, let's say, KFC, maybe don't get the bucket option, which is going to be a ton of fats, a ton of carbs, and maybe not so much protein. So if you're going to be ordering from a restaurant, from a place, make sure it's mostly protein, probably something that hasn't been fried, something that doesn't have carbs, doesn't have like sauces added and whatnot. And this way you can minimize some of that. Actually, something that I forgot to mention was, when it comes to fats, most of the fats are probably not going to be great for your health either, because they may be using trans fats, they may be using a lot of vegetable oils that may be causing a lot of inflammation. So it's not that fat on its own is bad, but excess fats can, first off, bump up the calories quite a bit, especially if you're trying to lose weight. That's probably not a good idea. And even if you're not trying to lose weight, you'll definitely be dealing with a lot of, I don't want to call them unhealthy fats, but probably the result is going to be that, where you're going to have some issues with inflammation because of the highly processed fats that you're consuming there. So that's one option. Just order from a restaurant. I know that's not rocket science, nothing new that you're probably hearing at this point, but just being a little bit more cautious about how you make those choices and focusing on minimizing fats and carbs can go a long way, especially if you're traveling. I mean, you don't have a lot of options there. You're going to end up at KFC, McDonald's, I don't know, Pizza Hut as well. But you can find at least one item on their menu that's going to work for you. Another option is going to be cold cuts. So this is going to be your Lunchable meats. I'm not a big fan because they tend to add a lot of preservatives, which are, again, may not be great for your health. That's why one of the consideration at the beginning was there's going to be some trade-off between what's going to be healthy and sustainable and what's going to be optimal in terms of both your goals and your health. But cold cuts, you can go there, get some turkey or chicken. If you're bulking, maybe you can get some beef jerky as well. There are options. These are probably not going to be the tastiest ones, and maybe you can make a, I guess you can, how's this, a sandwich you can make at home, or you can just add them to a salad. It's going to be pre-cooked. It's usually going to be high protein, not the healthiest thing. So if you can just look at the label and look at the ingredients, ideally there should be just one or two ingredients there. Basically, let's say it's going to be chicken, breast, meat, and then maybe some sodium, and then maybe something else. But if you see like 5, 6, 10 different items in terms of the list of ingredients, probably not the healthiest thing out there. And you want to go for products that are ideally less processed. I'm not going to suggest things like salami and sausages due to the same reason. Usually, the fat content is going to be pretty high, which is going to bump up the calories. You're going to get some types of fat that may drive inflammation. And also, they add a lot of preservatives, which are, again, not great for health. But this is also an option. Though things like sausages, they tend to be very high in fat, so may not work for cutting and fat loss. And of course, we also have dairy, which is probably the most convenient one, especially because with meats, you have to pair with something. Like plain meat is not going to taste amazing. But dairy, there's different options. There's high fat, low fat. There's different flavors and whatnot. It's pretty easy. The problem with dairy that I find is that a lot of people have problems with don't tolerate dairy that well. So that's one thing. That's one issue. And then the other one is that protein content in dairy, it's not that high compared to meats. So you're going to get roughly about 10 or 20, I think it's 20 grams of protein per cup of dairy or a big serving of dairy. And for meat, it's going to be probably around 30 or 40 per serving. So you have to eat a little bit more. And then with dairy, you're getting some carbs there as well, maybe some fats. And it's there are some limitations there, especially meat is generally tolerated best by most folks. Dairy, not so much. And again, moving down the list, I'm just going through things that are sort of trying to strike that nice balance between high protein content, low fat, low carbs, and easy to prepare as well, or it require no cooking. Obviously, dairy is one of those things where you can just eat it like this with a spoon. All good. Then I would also add eggs, although they do require cooking. They do require some kind of a minimal prep, but it's going to make more sense once I go through the lecture, and I'm going to give you some ideas how to prepare your cooks in a very easy way where you don't have to do much or almost anything at all. But eggs are another option if you have a way to boil or cook them without investing anything more than a minute, which is something that you can definitely do. And then there's going to be some vegan sources, tofu, tempeh, seitan as well. These are okay, especially if you're vegan or vegetarian. You don't have a lot of options. If you're vegetarian, you can at least have some dairy. But if you're vegan, you just have to eat plant-based, which is okay. And there's different products on the market. Most of them are just open the package. And tofu, for example, it's good to go. Like you can eat it. The quality again may not be great. And then the problem with vegan sources is that the protein content versus, say, mostly carbs is going to be almost the same. So if you are on a fat loss diet, if you're trying to lean down, you want to strike a nice balance between not having too much calories in general. And most vegan sources, they come packaged with a lot of carbs. So you need to manage your carbs and protein, maybe fats, depending on the exact product there. So this could be a struggle, but at least you don't have to cook a lot of those. So that's another option there. And even if you're not vegan or vegetarian, you can throw in some of those occasionally. There are some considerations when it comes to soy products and raising estrogen levels. And if you're eating a lot of soy products, you may run into these issues. So unless you're vegan or vegetarian, I wouldn't suggest eating a lot of soy. But if you are, you don't have a lot of options. You can go for maybe organic or what was the word? Fermented soy products, which I believe have less estrogen in them. So if you want to make healthier choices, but this will probably not have a major impact on your short-term physique goals. Like long-term, the quality of the food is definitely going to affect your health. And of course, we also have powders, different protein powders. You have whey, you have casein, you have beef protein powders, egg powders, like all kinds of different powders, vegan as well. And these are pretty easy. You just mix them with water, boom, good to go. You can fix yourself a smoothie as well. And that's going to cover, for the most part, protein. To summarize, we have cooked meats from a restaurant, you have cold cuts, you have dairy, added there eggs as well if you have an easy way to cook them, different vegan sources, and then we have powders as well. Now, let's talk about carbs. So with carbs, one thing I learned some time ago is that you gotta deserve your carbs. So your carb intake is going to be probably dictated by your goal and to an extent your metabolism. So some people can handle higher amount of carbs, but if you're usually trying to lean down, you're probably not going to need a lot of carbs. So it's not that much of an issue there. And when we're talking specifically about side carbs, aka starchy carbs, which are going to be your main source of energy, unless you're doing some kind of like a ketogenic diet, in which case you don't have to worry about at this point. It's going to be something that you may need to cook. So things like rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, different types of legumes as well, which again, you can get from a restaurant. You can order food online, or you can go to the hot aisle at the grocery store and you can get something that is pre-cooked. And similar consideration like with protein, you want to make sure that you're getting mostly carbs and minimize the fat content. Unless maybe you're going for something like beans or lentils, which are going to have some protein there as well. But if you're going to get rice, minimal amount of fat. Again, this is if you're trying to limit your calories, but you can just go to a Chinese restaurant and get some plain rice or maybe a rice with veggies. It's going to have some oil there, but you can browse the different options, maybe ask the cashier, see what they have available, how much cooking fat they use, and you can get some cleaner carbs. Rice is my go-to option most of the time because it's tolerated well by most people. Things like potatoes, some people deal well on potatoes, some people don't. Different types of legumes like lentils, beans, chickpeas. It's very individual, so you have to experiment. If they work for you, awesome. If they give you gas, they give you bloating, they give you some kind of digestive issues, maybe you want to not have them that frequently. And again, going to a restaurant, making sure that you're getting mostly carbs. So I would say maybe like 3 or 4-to-1 ratio between carbs and fats, which is just minimal amount of cooking fat there. Unless you're trying to bulk, in which case probably going to be fine. But again, the quality of the fat in most restaurants that they use is terrible, and you may deal with a lot of inflammation and digestive issues. So you have to experiment and see how you personally feel. Then some other options that are not cooked. Easy one is rice cakes. You need some carbs there. You can buy those almost anywhere. And I would throw in there certain grain products as well. So oats, it's a good example. They do require some prepping. So you need to add some water, add some milk. But there are different types of, yep. When I say rice cakes, it doesn't necessarily have to be rice. There are different types of chips, healthy, I'm not sure how to label these, but rice cakes can be from regular rice, could be brown rice. They do some, I think, lentil cakes. I'm not sure how you call them, but you can just go to the health aisle and figure out something that is made from either potatoes, just starch in general. That's going to be good in high in carbs and ideally minimal amount of fats in there. So health aisle, something like rice cakes could be made from lentils, could be made from potatoes. I don't suggest potato chips because they come with a lot of fats and they're fried and probably not the best source of your carbs. But there are those options as well. And as long as it's high carb, almost no fats, and minimal amount of protein, it's probably going to be good. I would also add here cornflakes. But the options that I'm listing, keep in mind, these are very, very high in carbs. And I would only suggest these if you are trying to get a lot of carbs in your diet, because these are highly processed carbs, which for most people are probably going to be a bad idea. So I'm listing options without having any specific goal in mind. So me, for example, I would sometimes eat cornflakes, especially post-workout, because my carb target is 350 grams of carbs. So that is a lot. But for most people, if you're trying to lose weight, you're probably aiming for something like 150, which is going to be 2 servings of rice, and boom, you're done. You don't have to worry about adding a ton of carbs in there. Oats, I would probably say it's my go-to if you can tolerate them well. And it's healthier. You get some more fiber there, and they're not heavily processed, such as certain types of cereals and rice cake-like options. You can also go for things that are canned or maybe in a jar. So you can grab some canned beans, lentils, chickpeas, peas, anything that's, I would usually go for something that's in a jar versus a can due to BPA, which type of plastic that is sometimes added to the inside the lining of a can. Though it doesn't have to be BPA. Even if it says BPA free, they may add some other plastics, which may again raise your estrogen levels and generally may lead to some mild they're let's label them as toxins that your body has to deal with. So to summarize, carb options in terms of starch, cooked options as long as they're low in fats. You can just order some plain rice, potatoes, baked potatoes, something like that, lentils, chickpeas, peas. You got some rice cakes, different types of cereals. If you're trying to bump up your carb intake and you need a lot of carbs, usually post workouts, if it doesn't have a lot of fiber, I would rather stay away from it. So I guess I can add to the rule high carb, high fiber, ideally, and low fat. And I don't know if it's going to get some protein, depends on the source. Then we have things in cans or jars. You can add it to a salad as well. So for example, you have some beans, you can add them to a Mexican salad. You can add some canned corn or corn in a jar or similar sources as well. So what about carbs that are specifically plant sources? Well, this is going to be very easy. It's going to be mostly your fresh or frozen fruits or veggies. Fresh, if you can, awesome. With fruits, you don't have to worry about cooking or prepping. Just have a banana, have an apple, avocado. Yeah, it's a fruit as well. With veggies, some types of veggies, they require cooking. So if you're trying to minimize prep time, just go for options that don't require any cooking in the dough. So this would be your leafy greens, some of your brightly colored veggies, such as carrots, bell peppers. What else? Sorry, I'm going blank. Yeah, you get the idea. Basically, any type of veggie that you don't need to cook and then you can tolerate, doesn't give you gas, doesn't get you bloated. Certain types of veggies may have to be cooked, and I'm going to give you some options how to do that quickly with minimum amount of prep. But yeah, that's probably the easiest one. Like if you're traveling, man, I would just grab some fresh fruits or some frozen, assuming you have a microwave. Protein, again, you can order something from a restaurant or get some cold cuts in there, get your protein powder, boom, you're done. And then fats are probably the one thing that you don't really need to worry too much about unless you're going ketogenic or something closer to keto, high fat diet, or you just need a lot of calories in your diet as well. So in terms of fats, you got oils. With oils, I would avoid vegetable oils. Again, most people don't deal on vegetable oils that well. There are certainly exceptions, and not every oil is going to be equally good or bad for you. But I would try to minimize fried things. So anything that's been fried, hydrogenated oils, aka trans fats, and well, there are good examples: sunflower, safflower, and rapeseed oil. So these are the ones I would generally avoid. The ones that I would usually go for are things like quality olive oil and avocado oil. These are good examples. And these are technically, is this fruit? I think it's, avocado is fruit, and I'm not sure about olive. I think they're technical fruit oils that are pretty much okay for most people, if you can find quality. Most of the stuff they're going to get the grocery store maybe cut with other types of oil. So look at the label and see if it's pure olive oil or they've added something else, some type of other oils. Butters could be fine, assuming you're not over consuming your trans fats, but good quality butter. Would add ghee here as well, including not just dairy products, but coconut butter as well. Nuts, another source of good, healthy, for the most part, healthy fats. And then we have avocado as well. Though a couple of notes regarding nuts. If you have allergies, obviously that's not going to be a good option there. But if you want to add in some extra fats for your diet, especially if you're bulking, if you're struggling with your calories, you can add some nut butters or just some nuts. Though pay attention to how you feel, and if you have some mild intolerance, it's pretty frequent. Peanuts are a good example, even though peanuts are not technically nuts, they're legumes, so it's a different thing. And then avocado as well, which is it's technically a fruit, but it is also high in fats. So these are some examples there. And now let me talk about some ways to prepare some of these foods and some of the options that require minimal prepping if you have the right appliances, right cooking tools, if you will. So there's nothing wrong with cooking, and it can definitely make things feel tastier, but this assumes that you're not traveling, you're staying in one place, and you can actually invest in something extra there. So a couple of suggestions on my end is multi-cookers. These are amazing, and these can do a bunch of different things. So if you're not sure what's a multi-cooker, just go on Google, type in, you're going to get different options. I'm not going to suggest any brands because obviously depending on where you are, when you're listening to a recording, there's going to be different options available in your region. But it's very, very simple. And essentially you just put the food in there, put the ingredients, you just add some seasoning, press a button, and boom. Like the one that I have has, I believe, 16 different options. So I'm going to give you some examples of how I cook later towards the end, but essentially just put all the ingredients there and then you press a button and boom, it's done. Like the little prep time may take you as little as a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And depending on exactly what you're trying to cook, the cooking time will take some time. So I'm not saying that the minimal prep time means also minimal cook time. Sometimes the prep time could be a minute, but then again, you still have to wait about 30 minutes, but they cook pretty fast. There are also different types of specialized cookers depending on your diet. So for example, if you're eating a lot of rice, you can get a rice cooker. I eat a lot of eggs, and that's why I add eggs there in terms of minimal prep. Because if you have something like an egg cooker, it literally takes 30 seconds. You just line up the eggs in there, add some water, put the lid on top, press a button, you wait 10 minutes, and they're done. Well, after this, you have to peel. You have to get the actual egg out of the shell. It will take some time, but again, the prepping time is minimal as well. So different type of specialized cookers, depending on your diet. If you're eating, I don't know, a lot of yogurt, you can make it at home. If you're eating a lot of breads or gluten, you can get something that does it for you. By the way, I didn't include breads in the carb option, but this is also something that some people may be okay with. But it really depends on how well you do on gluten, and I don't find breads working that well for most people. So I didn't include it in the starch option for you. But yeah, if you're outside, you may as well grab a sandwich if this is the best option that you have. So we got multi-cookers, we got specialized cookers that just do one thing, but they do it very well. You can also use an air fryer slash more of a modern oven, maybe with the stovetop. So air fryer is essentially an oven, but it's very easy to cook in there. Again, similar to the multi-cooker, you just add the products in there, add some seasoning, press a button, wait a bit, and it's done. The difference between a multi-cooker and an air fryer is that a multi-cooker can do a bunch of different things and usually requires you to add some liquid in there. Whereas with an air fryer, you basically fry. So you can add your meat, but you're not going to have to add anything, well, any liquid or any water, because it's just going to fry. So an air fryer is a little bit more of a specialized, I guess, a specialized cooker in a way. It doesn't do that many things, but for meats and certain things like potatoes, it's actually great. It saves a lot of time. Another thing that almost every household has, or especially if you're traveling, if you're at a hotel, I would always try to find a place with a microwave, because people don't realize this, but you can cook in a microwave, even if it's a very simple one. You can cook meats and you can cook even rice. You can cook potatoes, sweet potatoes. You can prep your veggies as well. So a microwave gives you a lot of options, even if it's a very, very simple one. So I've actually lived at a hotel for almost 2 months, and I was using the microwave every single day. I was cooking a lot of meat. I was cooking my chicken in microwave. It sounds crazy, but it works, especially if you have like a limited limited options available. And again, similar to the multi-cooker, you just add some seasoning, maybe like you may need to get like some microwave safe glassware. I wouldn't suggest Tupperware. Get glass, not plastic. Add your meat in there, add the lid, and boom, it's going to be done in about 10 minutes. Very, very time-saving piece of equipment. And even if you're buying just frozen things, you can get a frozen meal as well. You can just pop it in the microwave and boom, it's done. There's different options. Then we got blenders for different types of smoothies and just having more variety there. I would say a blender is not necessarily gonna save a lot of time in terms of prepping because you're going to be blending things that are already pre-cooked and ready to go. So you're probably mostly going to be blending fruits, but they're going to save consumption time and they can make things tastier. So if you're making a smoothie, it can taste pretty damn well. If you add the right ingredients, add the right mix, add some protein powder in there, it's not going to it's not going to save you any prep time because you actually have to cook the blender instead of eating, let's say, you can make a banana smoothie. You can definitely peel the banana and eat the banana. That's not going to be a big difference between blending the banana with something else, but the consumption time may be a little bit faster, especially if you're making a big smoothie, if you're trying to gain weight, if you're adding a bunch of different ingredients there. And it also makes things taste better, especially with your greens. I actually blend my spinach and blend my lettuce sometimes with just a bit of water and lemon juice because I don't like eating my veggies. I'm going to be honest. So blending with something else makes it easier to gulp down and be done with it. And of course, you can also use the regular oven with a stove top, but that's going to probably take the most amount of time because with multi-cookers and specialized cookers and air fryers, they cook much faster than an oven. And they just save you time in terms of waiting for the food. Now, making things taste better, rather, seasoning. That is a big one. I'm going to give you an example with my day, how I save time with prepping, but also seasoning is a big part of this. Sure, you can minimize prep time to about a minute and save a lot of time, but it may not taste the best, especially compared to your mom's cooking or your grandma's cooking, who probably spend like 30, 40, 50 minutes just preparing the food and then cooking it for another couple of hours or something crazy like that. But she is probably big on seasoning as well. So just because you're saving time doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice taste. Experiment with seasoning. Go to the store, grab different types of seasoning, find ways to make the food taste better. And there's all kinds of different options. You can go for the standard stuff, which is going to be your salt, pepper, maybe paprika. What else? I guess you just go to the store and just test a bunch of different things. There are the standard seasonings. There are also universal seasonings that have a bunch of different things. So it's a combination of different things and you can just add it there. So you don't need to buy the individual things. Just get like a mix seasoning that you can add to almost any food. There are ways to make things very tasty. And it's a minimal investment that's going to make a big difference. And obviously experiment. You're not going to get it right from the start. Like I've definitely made some meals super tasty, taste awful. Something that's supposed to be savory, tastes super sweet. So you can mess it up. It's again, going back to one of the first points, it takes time. You have to learn how to do this properly. Now, at the end, let me give you some examples in terms of my current routine when it comes to prepping food. I actually prep my food every single day, every single meal, and I don't do any bulk prepping because it's so simple and it takes me almost no time. I eat probably 6 or 7 times, maybe sometimes 8 times a day, and I prepare my meal right before I have it. So usually, and by the way, what I'm going to say now, don't take it as, oh, he's eating this way, or I should be eating in a similar way. No, this is very specific way how I'm eating. I'm bulking. I'm eating a lot of carbs. That's specific to where I'm right now in terms of my physique, in terms of how I'm training. I'm not suggesting you should be eating the same way. Just use this as an example how to structure and prepare your food. Structure your meals and prepare your food. So in the morning, what I start my day with is usually eggs. And before I go to bed the previous night, I just line up the 5 eggs in the egg cooker, add a little bit of water, put the lid on top, press a button, and then as I'm brushing my teeth, they're usually done. And in the morning, I have boiled eggs that I only need to peel. That's it. And I will have my 5 eggs with I'll just cut them in smaller pieces, add a little bit of salt, add a little bit of olive oil. Man, they taste amazing. That's it. And that's my protein source plus some fats in there. And then I have either a couple of baby carrots that I just need to wash, or maybe a bell pepper. And sometimes I would have a red bell pepper, sometimes it's going to be yellow, sometimes it's going to be green. And that's my breakfast. Prep time, I just need to peel the eggs, need to wash my veggies, and maybe like cut them with a knife. The whole prep time is going to take me a couple of minutes. Of course, I do some of that stuff before the night before by boiling them before that, but I don't really need to babysit my eggs. I just put the water, press a button, that's it, and just have to wait. But in the meantime, I'm doing something else. So that's my first meal of the day. Second meal of my day, which is sort of my second breakfast, is usually oatmeal. I soak my oats from the previous night. So just add some oats, add some water, let them soak overnight. Helps with digestion, especially if you're having some issues with the fiber. It may help reduce some digestive issues. So I soak my oats overnight. You can soak them with Greek yogurt, with water, with almond milk, with regular milk. Doesn't really matter. Just you don't even have to do this. Like before this, a couple of years ago, I would just in the morning add my oats, add some water, pop them in the microwave for 2-3 minutes, and they're done. Depends. It's a preference thing. But again, you don't have to cook that. So I have my oats, add some whey protein powder because I need a little bit more protein. You can add some berries in there if you wish, just to make it tastier. But again, minimal prep time. Add water if you need to microwave or soak overnight. Add some berries if you wish. Add some fruits if you wish. Add some protein powder if you need some extra protein. And that's it. That's my second meal. Again, I don't need to cook. I don't need to prepare. There's a minimal investment there. Then as I'm having my oats, I load up some rice and some ground beef in the multi-cooker and add some water, add some salt. And you can add some other spice or seasoning if you wish. But this whole thing, obviously I'm measuring how much I'm putting there. So with the measuring, it takes an extra 30 seconds because I have to put the stuff on the scale. But I just add some rice. You can add some potatoes if you wish. You can add some beans. You can add some chickpeas. You can add some, what else? Well, whatever you decide there, it's going to be your main carb source. Add everything together. All of this plus weighing the food, weighing the portions takes about a minute. Meat, side carbs. You can add some veggies as well. Usually I add some frozen veggies that get in a bag, add it to the mix, put a lid on top, press a button, boom. I wait 30 minutes and my food is going to be ready. Usually I do this during my breakfast time, during my second breakfast. So rice and beef in my case, I let it cook for 30 minutes. And then once it's done cooking, it's going to keep it warm for the next 4 or 5 hours or for however long I need it to be. So I don't need to worry about when I'm going to consume it because it's going to be warm. So I let it there. I go to the gym, do my workout, come back. And then as I'm back, it has been already cooked like a couple of hours ago, but it's still warm. I just add a portion. And then in my case, I don't eat veggies post-workout. So I'll rather have a banana or an apple as a dessert. But then this is one portion. And then I have another portion for later on, again, rice and beef. And then I would add some sauerkraut, for example, or maybe like leafy greens as a salad there as a side, just to get my plants in there. Or maybe like I would have some berries as a dessert. And that's my next meal. Again, minimal prepping, just load everything in this cooker, multi-cooker, boom, done. It's going to keep it warm for the next day or as long as I need it to. And that's my 2 next meals post-workout. Then while I may probably snack, and I would eat usually some fruits as a snack there. I may grab some nuts if I need a little bit more fats. Again, no cooking there. Very easy. If I feel like having something like a dessert, I will have some Greek yogurt with some blueberries or some protein powder there for taste. That's another meal that I don't have to cook. And then for my last meal of the day, I would just grab a nice steak. This is usually when I have a little bit more fat in there. So I'll grab, let's say, some pork loin, or maybe a juicy beef steak. Whatever happens to be there. It's just some kind of meat or fish. I will put in the air fryer. And actually what I do is I put some baking paper in the air fryer so I don't have to clean it after this. You don't want to be washing all the time. So again, another sort of uh, hack, if you will. Add some baking paper, add my steak on top, and then I would add in, let's say, some sweet potato that I've cut into smaller pieces. Again, peeling the potato and cutting the potato probably is it's going to take you about 2 minutes. I don't know. Then adding the steak there, sprinkle some sea salt on top. If you wish, you can sprinkle something else, some other seasoning, and give it about 15 minutes. In the meantime, I'm watching some TV. I'm watching a podcast, listening to a podcast or something else. It's cooking. In 30 minutes, boom, it's done. Get it out. And I throw out the baking paper with all the fat in there, so I don't even have to clean the thing. It's very easy. That's my day. That's how I'm organizing my meals, and I'm cooking pretty much most of my meals right before or a couple of hours right before I eat them. But the prep time, I don't have to babysit the meal. I don't have to be like stirring the pot or staying there frying my eggs and making sure I don't overcook them. I just press a button, and then the multi cooker or the air fryer is going to take care of it. Once it's done, it's going to end the cooking process and it's going to keep it warm for me. So these are a couple of ways how you can minimize time. Again, I'm not saying that you will not have to cook. Unfortunately, you have to do some minimal prepping there. If you are traveling, so let me give you another example. What I would do is if I'm at a hotel or maybe an Airbnb and I don't have the option to cook necessarily, I would at least try to get a microwave. As I said, you can cook in a microwave. You just need some glassware or maybe like a couple of plates. So you can put one on top of the other. So you have sort of a lid there. You add your meat in there, add some seasoning, and then add some water. You can even make boiled potatoes. Same thing. As long as you have a lid on top, add a little bit of water, it's going to cook. Same thing with veggies. Or you can grab some frozen veggies. So my day at a hotel is going to look like this. Wake up in the morning, have my oats with some whey protein powder, maybe some fresh berries, mix them together. Boom, that's one meal. Next couple of meals could be maybe some lunchable meats and with some rice cakes, or maybe some smoked salmon, again, on top of a rice cake. And I may grab some leafy greens, just a pre-made salad from Costco or whatever, wherever, sorry. Boom, that's another meal. And then I may use the microwave for my last meal. I would just maybe like even go and get some glassware that's microwave safe. If I'm going to be staying at a hotel for a while, I mean, it's a $5, $10 investment. It's at least going to allow me to cook something with a lid. I chop in some potatoes in there, add in, let's say, some ground beef, mix them together, get some salt in there, get some universal seasoning, boom, add everything in there, put the lid on top, microwave, 10 minutes, boom, it's done meal. Is it going to taste the best? No. But is it going to be better than those lunchable meats and sausages that I'm going to get from the store? No. Or, as I said, you can just go to a restaurant and order a good high protein, low fat option. And then if you need some side carbs, just get some salad, get some fresh fruits as a dessert. Easy way to get some carbs there. If you don't want to cook, get some rice cakes, and that's it. Obviously, depending on where you live, you're going to have different options there. As you probably realize, I've skipped things like protein bars. I'm not a big fan, but that's another option. And that's going to conclude, I guess, the lecture for today. Let's see. Do you guys have some questions?